Obasanjo's volte-face on Yar'Adua Remorse or Political Calculation, Part 2. Obasanjo's attempt to remain very relevant, as well as influence policies in Nigeria after leaving office, did not end with the selection and enthronement of Yar'Adua. Aware of the influence that the position of chairman of PDP Board of Trustees wielded, he pulled all the necessary strings to ensure that the position was tailor-made for him. He and his acolytes decreed that the position could only be occupied by past presidents. Since Babangida had scampered away because of EFCC's open and subliminal threats against him, the BOT chairmanship became Obasanjo's. He could control party operations and influence choice of PDP candidates for elections. It's easy for him to deny now that he was ever interested in influencing policy or coming back indirectly. However, if he really had no interest in influencing policy from the sidelines, he would simply have planned to return to Ota after handing over power without seeking more involvement in party politics. He could have opted to become a statesman that all the people could go to and consult on national issues. That was not the case. Carving out a position for himself with the proviso that only past presidents could occupy it says a lot about his tacit attempt at tenure elongation. He must have imagined that with his man in power and with him as the chairman of the BOT, he was ready to rule Nigeria again, even if indirectly. Obasanjo's political game did not escape the prying eyes of Nigerians. After defeating his attempts at tenure elongation and then watching as he made himself the BOT chair, Nigerians had become suspicious of him and his motives. They were keeping vigil over him, his actions, and how Yar'Adua related to him. At every turn after assumption of office, Nigerians wondered if Yar'Adua was going to be his own man, or if he was going to stealthily cede presidential authority to Obasanjo. Yar'Adua's initial actions seemed to suggest that he was beholden to Obasanjo. He retained several of Obasanjo's men and women, but as time went on and as criticisms mounted that he was not his own man and was too slow, Yar'Adua began to remove some of Obasanjo's men and redeploy others. While that was soothing to many Nigerians, it may not have gone down well with Baba, who felt that he was being relegated to irrelevancy. It became clear that he was no longer enjoying the absolute loyalty of his man. Political watchers in Nigeria posit that this was when Obasanjo started regretting his choice of Yar'Adua, culminating in the call he made a few days ago for him to step aside. Analysts have tried to dissect this issue and determine with certainty why Obasanjo has now deserted the man he shoved down the collective throats of Nigerians only 2 years ago. Some surmise that he was born out of remorse for the political mess his selection of Yar'Adua has caused the country. Others argue that given his penchant at power grabbing, as evidenced by his attempt at tenure elongation, that the call was a mere political calculation to get himself back into the corridors of power. From this writer's perspective, it is both. One must first say that there is no question that Obasanjo is patriotic and wants Nigeria to succeed. Unfortunately, though, the man he touted as a miracle worker and gave Nigeria under duress is merely an inept president whose state of health has made things worse. The man he touted as Nigeria's savior barely understands the intricacies of governance in spite of his good heart. This is a man that did not hit the ground running when he took over the helmsmanship of Nigeria. He started off so slowly, telling Nigerians that he was putting together a solid plan to move the country forward in a multi-dimensional fashion. He promised to declare a state of emergency regarding power supply so as to summarily resolve the cankerworm of inadequate electricity. It's now been more than 2 years and the 6,000 megawatts goal is nowhere in sight. Instead, we are moving backwards. Nigeria's currency continues to free fall, while the endemic shortage of fuel continues in an intractable manner. Inflation is in double digits and infrastructure continues to deteriorate rapidly. As if all these problems are not enough, on Christmas Day, a Nigerian attempted to blow up an aircraft, landing Nigeria's name on the list of nations on terror watch list. Yar'Adua may not have been able to prevent the actions of a deviant. However, he could have been able to influence the actions of the United States and preempt the placement of Nigeria's name on that list. Yar'Adua's absence from the seat of power and hence inaction played a huge role in the outcome. What I said in a previous commentary bears repeating here. I posited that when the story of Murtala broke, if Nigeria's president had picked up the phone and immediately called the President of the United States and dissociated Nigeria from the boy's actions, pledged cooperation with the United States in the fight against terrorism, and then outlined the steps Nigeria was taking to avoid a repeat, Obama may have stayed action on Nigeria on the grounds that Nigeria's president was already taking action. However, Yar'Adua was in faraway Saudi Arabia. Just as Yar'Adua's ineptitude and absence have become an embarrassment to all Nigerians, fueling the protest marches in Abuja, Lagos, and London, Obasanjo must have become embarrassed too that the man he gave Nigeria is totally inept and AWOL. He must have become remorseful about the bad hand he dealt Nigeria in foisting Yar'Adua on her. As a patriotic Nigerian, he now sees the folly in what he did in 2006. On the other hand, Obasanjo has tasted absolute power, and most people that do hardly like to let go completely. The man he put in place, hoping to be involved in governance by proxy, has not lived up to his expectation. At this point in time, he has nothing to lose if Yar'Adua resigns or is kicked out. His expected replacement, Jonathan Goodluck, is still loyal to Obasanjo. Jonathan has been his beneficiary in many ways. When Alamia Yesiga was removed, it was Jonathan that was elevated. When Yar'Adua needed a vice presidential candidate, Obasanjo once again plucked him from relative obscurity and put him in Asha Rock. Such gestures are difficult to forget or brush aside. To state it more succinctly, with Jonathan in Asha Rock, Obasanjo's influence in the corridors of power will once again increase. His call for Yar'Adua to step down is therefore born out of both remorse and political calculation. For him, it's a win-win situation. Regardless of Obasanjo's motive in making the call, it does not absolve him of culpability in sending Nigeria down the wrong path. His role in this unfortunate saga has reduced his credibility so much that whatever he says does not matter anymore. He has tainted his already blemished presidency with the choice of Yar'Adua, a man he admittedly knew could not carry out the duties of the presidency for health reasons. Nigerians will always remember him as the man that gave us an ailing president, the one that forced on Nigeria a president that caused the nation to stand still in all development fronts. Just like the annulment of 1993 election stained Babangida's presidency for life, this will also stain Obasanjo's presidency and much of his legacy. He must now learn to live with that blemish like Babangida and other political aspirants must take note. You can fool some people sometime, but not all the people all the time. I'm Alfred Ubiora Uzokwe.